The woods feel different on Thanksgiving morning. It's something I've noticed every year, and I think Dad has too, even if he doesn't say it out loud. We're up before the sun, bundled in layers of flannel and thick jackets, and the air is so sharp it feels like it could cut you if you stood still too long. I tug my boots tight and glance over at Dad, who's already loading up the truck. He nods at me, eyes crinkling in that way they do when he's pleased, and I feel a warm swell of pride. There's a rhythm to this day, something that's just ours. It's not about the hunt exactly, not about the turkey or whatever we're lucky enough to spot out there. It's more about the silence, the way the woods open up for us when no one else is around, like they're welcoming us back for another year. Dad hands me my rifle, his face serious as he goes over the rules for the millionth time, and I listen, really listen, because it matters to him. "You know the spot, right, Pete?" he asks as I nod. "Good, then let's get moving." The sky is barely waking up as we set off, boots crunching over the leaves, and I let my thoughts wander to the last Thanksgiving, the first time I'd actually taken a shot. I remember the weight of it, the way the world had gone still for a moment afterward. Dad didn't say much, just a nod and a hand on my shoulder, but I could feel his pride. It's the kind that runs deeper than words. Today feels like it might be the same, or maybe a little different, but one thing's for sure, out here with Dad, in the quiet chill of Thanksgiving morning, it feels like everything's exactly where it's supposed to be. We've been walking for about an hour, moving deeper into the woods where the trees grow closer and the underbrush gets thick enough to swallow sound. The world around us is just barely waking up, the faint call of a bird, the crack of a branch somewhere off in the side, or our quiet, steady footsteps. I keep my eyes sharp, scanning the trees and listening for any sign of movement. I'm thinking about deer mostly, but that's not what we're hunting for today. And then there's this flickering of excitement when we spot it. A turkey, big and wild, picking its way through the brush just a few yards ahead. And it's perfect. Dad stops me with a light hand on my shoulder, and we both go silent, watching as it pecks at the ground. It's huge, and I can practically taste the stories I'll be able to tell if we bring it home. I feel Dad's quiet nod behind me, the subtle permission to move forward. I start to lift my rifle, steadying my breath like he had taught me, inching forward one slow step at a time. Then, out of nowhere, there's this horrible snap. The sound is like a gunshot echoing through the trees, and I turn just in time to see Dad stumble, his face going pale as he drops to one knee. A bear trap, rusted and jagged. It's clamped tight around his leg, biting deep into his boot, and he lets out this sharp hiss of pain. I barely register the turkey's frantic flutter as it bolts out of sight, vanishing into the shadows. My chest tightens, and the thrill of the hunt gone in an instant. "Dad!" I drop down next to him, trying to get a grip on the trap's metal teeth, but the edges are sharp, and my fingers slip off. He's breathing in short gasps, his face twisted in pain. "Hold still, I'm gonna get it off!" I try to pry the trap open, digging my fingers in and pulling with everything I've got, but it doesn't even budge. My arms start to shake, my fingers sore from the cold and the sharpness of the metal, but I don't stop. I keep pulling, digging my boots into the ground for leverage. Dad tries to reach down to help, but the trap is stuck. The trap's teeth dig deeper with every passing second, and I can see the pain etched into Dad's face. My hands are scratched and sore, useless against the rusted metal, and panic is starting to rise in my throat. I look at Dad, feeling like I've failed him, but he gives me this tight nod, trying to keep me steady. "I'm gonna get help, okay?" I say, my voice shaky but firm. I can't just stand here and watch him suffer. I have to do something. Anything. Dad grimaces, biting back another groan of pain. "All right, Pete, but listen to me," he says, his voice low and measured, like he's trying to keep himself calm for my sake. "You're gonna have to head back down the trail, towards the truck. We're deep in the woods here, son. There's no one else around." "But what if—" "No!" He cuts me off gently, his eyes hard and serious. "You'll have a better chance of finding help closer to the parking lot. Someone else might be out hunting as well. Maybe on their way back for Thanksgiving." He pauses, wincing as he shifts his leg over slightly. "Stay on the path. Don't take any chances, all right?" I swallow hard and nod, the weight of his words pressing down on me. I'm used to feeling safe out here, with him by my side, guiding every step. But now, the woods feel different, bigger, wilder. The thought of leaving him here twisted something inside of me. But I know he's right. I have to go. I'll be quick, Dad, I promise, standing up and brushing the dirt from my knees. I take one last look at him, memorizing the spot in my mind so I can find my way back. Just hang tight. He manages a small smile, his eyes softening. I'm not going anywhere, son. Just be careful. I nod, but my stomach is a mess of knots as I turn away, glancing back over my shoulder one last time. Then, I start down the trail, picking up speed with each step. My heart thudders in my chest, a steady rhythm and time with the crunch of leaves. Every tree and shadow looks like something else now, twisted, uncertain. I just focus on the path, telling myself that each step brings me closer to help. The trail stretches out ahead of me, winding back through the forest. The early morning light filters through the trees, and I keep scanning the shadows, hoping, praying that someone else might be out here today. I'm half running now, my breath coming in sharp gasps that hang in the cold morning air. Every so often, I yell out for help, my voice echoing through the trees, but only silence answers. Each shout feels like it's swallowed up by the forest, like the woods themselves are holding their breath. I fight down the feeling of panic clawing at me and keeping me moving. Faster with each step, even though the path is rough and uneven beneath my boots. Help! Somebody, please! I call out repeatedly, pushing my voice as loud as it'll go. For a long moment, there's nothing, just the rustle of leaves in the breeze and the distant calls of birds. And then, just as I'm starting to lose hope, I hear it, a faint voice calling back. Hey, who's out there? I stop in my tracks, barely able to believe it. Over here! I shout, relief washing over me as I turn towards the sound. I take off in the direction of the voice, my heart pounding with hope. As I round a bend, I see him, a man standing just off the trail, dressed head to toe in camo. He's tall and broad-shouldered, his face covered with a balaclava, a few steps towards me. Whoa, slow down there, son, he says, holding up a hand to steady me. His voice is calm and steady, the kind of voice that feels like it could handle anything. What's going on? I skid to a stop in front of him, trying to catch my breath. The words tumble out of me, fast and panicked. It's my dad. He's stuck in a bear trap. I try to get it off, but I can't, and he's hurt bad. He told me to find help. I didn't know if anyone else was out here, but... All right, the man says, his voice firm but kind. He places a steady hand on my shoulder. Take a breath, all right? Let's get you to calm down so you can tell me exactly where he is and how far out. I suck in a deep breath, trying to pull myself together. He's about maybe 15-20 minutes up the trail. We were headed deeper in when it happened. The trap, it's old and rusty, but it's clamped down hard. The man nods, his expression serious but focused. Okay, here's what we're gonna do. You're gonna lead me back to him. We'll get your dad out of that trap. Just stay close and don't run ahead, all right? I nod, my heartbeat finally starting to slow just a little. His calm confidence gives me something to hold on to, and I grip it tight, feeling steadier. Okay, yeah, I'll show you the way. Good man, he says, giving my shoulder a firm pat. He reaches back, pulling a small toolkit from his backpack and slinging it over his shoulder. Now, lead the way. We'll get your dad out of there. With a quick nod, I turn back up the trail, the hunter following close behind. As we make our way back, my mind races between hope and worry, but with each step, the man's presence beside me makes me feel like we might just have a chance. It feels like forever, but after what must have only been 15 minutes, I finally spot Dad, right where I left him. He slumped against a tree, his face pale and tight with pain, but his eyes flick up when he hears us approaching. Relief flashes across his face when he sees that I'm not alone. Dad! I shout, rushing forward. I kneel beside him, reaching out to steady his arm, and he gives me a small nod, managing a weak smile. You did good, Pete, he says, his voice barely a whisper. He looks up at the hunter, sizing him up, the relief plain in his face. The hunter steps forward, calm and steady, nodding respectfully to Dad. "Sir, I'm here to help. Let's see what we've got." He crouches down next to the trap, pulling his toolkit from his pack and setting it on the ground beside him. His movements are smooth and practiced, like he's done this 100 times. "Almost there," he mutters. With one final push, the trap's jaw snaps open, freeing Dad's leg. Dad lets out a pained gasp, pulling his leg back as quickly as he can. I reach out to help him, my hand steadying his shoulder as he grimaces through the pain. "Thank you," Dad says, looking up at the hunter, his voice thick with relief. "I don't know how to repay you." The hunter straightens, dusting off his hands, but as he does, his gaze shifts, hardening in a way I don't understand. There's a strange, cold glint in his eyes now, something that sends a chill up my spine. "You're welcome," he says, his voice low and steady. Then, in one fluid motion, he reaches back and pulls his rifle from his shoulder, aiming it directly at my dad's head. The world seems to stop, a terrible silence hanging in the air. My heart seizes and everything in me freezes. What are you doing?" I stammer, my voice barely a whisper. Dad's eyes widen, horror dawning on his face as he realizes what's happening. "Listen, we don't want any trouble," he says, his voice shaking. "We just want to get home." The hunter's face doesn't change. His finger hovers over the trigger, and before I can even process what's happening, I see his hand tense. His finger squeezes down. "No!" I scream, lunging forward, but it's too late. The shot rings out, echoing through the trees, loud enough to shatter the stillness of the forest. The sound reverberates in my skull, and the world blurs as I watch Dad slump forward, his body going still. My scream fades into the silence that follows, the echo of the gunshot lingering in the air as I drop to my knees, a hollow ache spreading through me, too deep for words. I can't breathe. My dad's body lies still on the ground, his face pale, his eyes glossed over and lifeless. The shock holds me, freezing every thought, every word that should come out of me. And then, slowly, I hear the crunch of boots on dry leaves as the hunter steps closer, his rifle still in hand, and his eyes gleaming cold. "You know," he says, almost conversationally, "I wasn't sure if I'd get anyone out here today, Thanksgiving and all." He chuckles, a low, dark sound that turns my stomach. "Figured most folks would be busy with their families, but it's my lucky day, isn't it?" I just stare at him, my body numb, unable to move or think. He looks down at me, his eyes narrow and sharp, like he's inspecting a catch he's proud of. You planned this?" I finally manage, my voice barely above a whisper. He nods, a grin widening. "Set that trap a few weeks back, just waiting for some fool to stumble into it. One of those hunters who thinks he knows the woods better than me." He shrugs, his rifle still held loosely but ready. "But this is special. Didn't expect to bag anyone today. Thanksgiving Day, of all times, a true blessing, wouldn't you say?" I feel a rush of anger surge up, hot and wild, fighting against the terror that paralyzes me. "You're sick," I yell, my voice cracking. "We were just out here. We weren't hurting anyone." He shrugs, a casual, dismissive motion that only makes the horror sharper. "Wrong place, wrong time, kid. I've been out here long enough to know that's just how it goes. You were the unlucky ones." He leans down, bringing his face level with mine, his eyes cold and calculating. "But don't take it personally. You just made it easier." He straightens, glancing at the trees as if savoring the stillness he's left in his wake, the silence that hangs heavy between us. "Now, I think it's time for you to move along, boy," he says, his tone light, like he's giving me a gentle warning. "Before you end up like your dad here." I feel myself shaking, a raw mix of rage and grief filling me as I stare back at him. But my body doesn't move, rooted to the ground, my fists clenched so hard they hurt. The hunter watches me for a long moment, then turns, his footsteps crunching over fallen leaves as he disappears into the woods, leaving me alone in this crushing silence. I kneel beside my dad's body, the weight of his stillness pressing down on me, making it hard to breathe. The cold air feels thick and heavy, every second dragging on as I reach out, placing a shaking hand on his shoulder. His jacket is rough and familiar under my fingers, but his face is pale, and the warmth is already leaving him. I can't accept it. I can't leave him here, alone in these woods. I grab him under his arms, straining with everything I have to pull him. His body shifts slightly, but he's too heavy. My boots slipping on the leaves and dirt as I struggle. My hands shake, my throat tight with the ache of helplessness. I want to scream, but my voice feels trapped, buried deep in the shock that's numbing every part of me. I need to get him home. He's just too heavy. My mind races, grasping for anything else I can do. My hand goes into my pocket, pulling out my phone, only for my heart to sink when I see it's dead. I try to turn it on anyway, praying for a miracle, but it's useless. Dad's phone. Dad's phone might still be in his truck. I reach into his jacket pocket, fumbling with stiff fingers until I find his keys, their cool metal pressing into my palm. It's my only shot. With a deep breath, I stand and take one last look at him, whispering, "I'll be back, Dad. I'll get help." The words come out as a choked promise, the weight of it sinking deep inside me. I turn, forcing myself to leave, even though every step feels like it's tearing me apart. After what feels like forever, I finally reach the truck. I climb into the driver's seat, gripping the steering wheel with white knuckles. The truck looms around me, bigger than it ever felt when Dad was in the driver's seat. I slide the key into the ignition, willing myself to remember every time I've watched him drive this old manual. "Come on, Pete," I whisper to myself, fighting back the fear in my throat. "You can do this." I press the clutch, my foot trembling, and I try to shift the truck into gear, just like I've seen him do 1,000 times. But as soon as I try to release the clutch, the truck lurches, jerking forward before stalling. I try again, more determined this time, but it's no use. I can't control it, not like he could. A hot frustration burns through me, my fists pounding the wheel like a surge of helpless anger. Why can't I just do this? I shout, my voice cracking, but I know there's no time to waste. I'm wasting precious minutes here. I check his phone, hoping for a miracle, but the screen only mocks me with its "no service" message. I'm completely alone out here. I glance back at the forest, a chill running through me as the thought of that hunter still lurking somewhere in those shadows. I can't risk going back. I need to get real help, and fast. With a shaky breath, I climb out of the truck and start down the long dirt road that stretches towards my house. I'm miles out, miles of winding, empty woods, but I keep going, each step feeling heavier, each footfall echoing with Dad's last words to me. I focus on putting one foot in front of the other, the cold biting into me with each step as I push forward. The sky above is a pale gray, the light fading as clouds gather. I think about the last time we walked this road together, how he always let me take the lead, encouraging me, telling me I could handle myself out here. I cling to that now, using his words to drown out the emptiness, the fear gnawing at my mind. I keep walking, my heart filled with one thought, one drive. I have to get help. For him, for the promise I made, for all of the Thanksgivings we had done this together. I walk, the miles stretching on, because it's the only thing left to do. By the time I finally see the lights of our house flickering through the trees, the sky has darkened to a heavy, smothering dusk. The shadows stretch long across the ground, and I feel like I'm trudging through a nightmare. Every step is harder than the last, my legs aching, my whole body chilled to the bone, but seeing the soft glow of the porch light brings me a glimmer of relief. I've made it. I'm home. As I stagger up the front steps, the door swings open and Mom stands there, her face etched with worry, her eyes scanning me over in alarm. Behind her, my little sisters are clutching each other, their wide, frightened eyes lock onto mine. They're barely old enough to understand, but they know something's wrong. "Pete, where's your dad?" Mom's voice is tight, edged with fear. She glances over my shoulder, as if hoping to see him right behind me. When she doesn't, her face pales. What happened? The words feel thick and tangled in my throat, and it takes me a second to get them out. "Mom, Dad's hurt. In the woods. He stepped into a trap and then..." My voice cracks as I try to find the words. The horrifying memory of the hunter, the gunshot, flashing through my mind. Someone shot him. We need to get help, now." Mom's hands fly over her mouth, her face crumbling as she takes in my words. She pulls me into a tight hug, holding on as though I might disappear. I feel her trembling against me, but after a moment, she straightens, her face hardening with a grim resolve. "Girls, go upstairs," she says quietly, ushering my sisters back. They hesitate, glancing between us with frightened eyes, but they listen, disappearing up the stairs with anxious whispers. Mom turns back to me, her hands on my shoulder, her face set with a fierce determination. "I'm calling the police. Stay with me, Pete." She leads me inside, helping me sit on the couch as she grabs the phone, her fingers shaking as she dials. I hear her voice breaking slightly as she explains the situation, but she holds it together, pressing for them to come as quickly as possible. After she hangs up, she kneels in front of me, her eyes brimming with a mix of fear and sadness. "Pete, I'm so sorry. I can't even imagine what you went through out there." She strokes my hair, her touch gentle but grounding. "The police will be here soon, and they will help us. They'll help you." We sit in silence, the minutes dragging on as the weight of what happened settles over us. Finally, flashing red and blue lights cut through the darkness outside, and I hear the crunch of footsteps approaching the door. Mom stands up, opening it to let in 2 officers, both with serious expressions as they step into the room. One of them, Officer Hill, kneels down in front of me, his voice calm and measured. "Pete, I'm Officer Hill. Your mom told us a little bit about what happened, but I need you to walk me through it. Can you do that?" I nod, swallowing hard, and start to explain, my voice shaky as I recount every detail. How Dad stepped into the trap, how I tried to get it open, and finally, how the hunter showed up, his cold, empty eyes, the gun pointed at Dad. He said it was a blessing," I say, my voice barely above a whisper. "Like, he was thankful. Like he'd planned it." Officer Hill's face hardens, his jaw clenched as he listens, but he keeps his voice calm for my sake. "You did the right thing coming back for help, Pete, and I know this is hard, but you were brave out there." I nod numbly, the weight of his words barely sinking in. All I can think about is Dad, alone in the woods. I just want to bring him home. The officers stay with us for a long time that night, talking quietly with Mom, mapping out their plans to search Fairystone Farms and surrounding woods. They tell us that, come morning, they'll have teams combing the area. The words sound reassuring, but a knot of fear still twists inside of me. It's hard to imagine Dad out there, alone, after everything that happened. I cling to the hope that maybe, somehow, they'll find him. Maybe he's just waiting, alive, for us to bring him home. As the officers prepare to leave, one of them pulls Mom aside. "We'll do everything we can tonight, but it's a large area. First light, we'll have more teams and even more volunteers from the community joining the search. You're welcome to come too." Mom nods, her face pale but resolute. I catch her eye. She gives me a small nod, letting me know that we'll be a part of the search. I nod back, feeling a rush of determination. Tomorrow, We will find him. But before the officers have even left, there's another knock at the door. Mom answers, her face drawn, and I hear the soft, professional voice of a woman introducing herself as a news anchor. She's from the local station, and she's heard about what happened, asking if she can speak with me. Mom glances over her shoulder, her expression asking me if I'm up for it. I nod, though my stomach feels tight, and the woman steps inside, her camera operator standing a respectful distance away. The interview is brief, her voice gentle as she asks me to explain what happened. I tell her about the hunt, about Dad stepping into the trap, and the man who showed up, twisting his face into a smile as he aimed his rifle. I try not to let my voice crack, but I feel my throat tightening as I recount those final moments. She thanks me, her eyes soft with sympathy, as she and the camera operator leave. I catch a glimpse of the news van outside, its bright lights cutting through the night. I imagine people at home watching, maybe some of them gearing up to help. It feels surreal. The news reports it that night, urging the community to come out and help search. They broadcast my voice, my story, urging anyone who can lend a hand to come to the woods by dawn. Mom and I watched the report in silence, her arm wrapped around me, and I try to ignore the empty ache that only seems to keep growing. The next morning, it feels like the whole town shows up. I can't believe how many people are there, from neighbors to total strangers, bundled up against the chill as they gather near the edge of the woods. Their quiet, respectful, but determination in their faces mirrors the stubborn hope that keeps me going. They're here for Dad, here to bring him home. With Officer Hill and another deputy beside me, I lead the way, retracing my steps along the trail. My heart pounds harder with every step closer, every familiar turn reminding me of where I left him. But when we reach the spot, my breath catches in my throat. The ground is empty. The place where I left him, where I sat beside him in his final moments, it's all blank, as though he were never here. Leaves and broken branches scatter across the ground, but Dad's body is gone. No, this is where he was, I say, my voice cracking as I point to the spot. This is it, I'm sure of it. The officers exchange a grim look, scanning the ground for any sign of him. They find the rusted bear trap, still lying open in the dirt, stained and dried with blood. But of my dad, there's no sign, not a trail, not a footprint. The volunteers fan out, searching every inch of the woods around us. But as the hours tick by, they come up empty-handed. Days pass. The search widens, covering miles of the forest, but no one finds anything. No trace of him, no tracks, not a single clue. It's as though the woods swallowed him up. I keep going back, combing the trails with anyone who is willing to come with me, my heart sinking in, a little more each time we come up empty. The question, the fear, the cold emptiness, all of it lingers, hovering around me like a shadow. The knock at the door that evening was unexpected. Mom, weary from days of fruitless searching, stands up with a sigh, glancing at me before heading to answer it. I'm curled on the couch, staring at the TV, though I'm not really watching. My legs feel heavy, and my head is spinning with thoughts I can't untangle. Chief Riley, Mom says warmly, and I glance over at the door. There he is, the chief of police, holding a tray of food wrapped in foil. Oh, bless you, Chief, that's so kind. He steps inside, offering a small, polite smile. The community put it together, he says, his voice smooth, calm. Figured you could use a little less to worry about tonight. We all wish we could do more. His voice hits me like a punch to the stomach. The tone, the inflection, I know it. It's the hunter's voice, the one who smiled as he raised the rifle, the one who took my dad's life. My chest tightens, and I feel the blood drain from my face. I can't breathe, and I can't move. Thank you, Mom says, her voice soft with gratitude. She gestures to the kitchen. Why don't you come in for some coffee? It's the least I can offer after everything you all have done. Appreciate it, Chief Riley says, stepping farther inside. He sets the food on the counter, then takes the cup of coffee Mom pours him. His calm demeanor never wavers, but I notice the way his eyes flick towards me. I'm frozen in place, gripping the armrest of the couch so tightly my knuckles ache. He takes a sip of his coffee, his expression turning serious. I wanted to come by in person to tell you, he says, looking at Mom, that we're gonna have to call off the search. Mom's face falls, her hand going to her mouth. But it's only been a few weeks. I know, he says, his voice steady but heavy with false sympathy. But we've covered every inch of the woods, Mrs. Fields. There's just nothing more we can do at this point. It might be best to think about a memorial service. Give the community a chance to grieve and support you. Mom looks like she might cry, but she nods, her voice trembling. I understand. Thank you, Chief. Riley sets his cup down, giving her a somber nod. I wish I had better news. If there's anything else we can do for you, please let me know. Before Chief Riley leaves, he pauses in the doorway, glancing back at Mom with what looks like a genuine regret in his eyes. I just want to say, Mrs. Fields, I'm sorry I wasn't able to be here sooner. The first couple of weeks after your husband went missing, I was out in Martinsville with my family for the holiday. I only got back a few days ago, and today was the first chance I had to come to see you in person. I wish I could have been a part of the initial search effort, but please know I'll do everything I can to support you going forward. Mom nods, her eyes glistening. Thank you, Chief. I know you've got so much on your plate already. It means a lot that you came by. He tips his hat with a faint, somber smile, but as his words settle in my mind, a chill runs through me. Martinsville. It's close enough to Ferrystone, and the timeline he just gave lines up perfectly when Dad was killed. He's giving himself an alibi, but I know the truth. My stomach churns, and my resolve hardens even further as I watch him walk out the door. When the door shuts, it's like the air in the room changes. Mom moves to sit beside me, gently resting her hand on my shoulder. Honey, I think we need to start thinking about a memorial. It's what your dad would have wanted. I nod, stiffly, my mind racing, but I can't find the words to tell her. The man who just walked out of our house, the man she poured coffee for, is the same one who killed my dad. My lips tremble, but nothing comes out. She's already so broken. How can I say it? How can I make her believe me? Instead, I sit there, stunned and silent, my heart pounding with the truth I have to carry now. The hunter is still here, walking free, and no one knows but me. I sit there on the couch long after Mom goes to bed, staring at the door Chief Riley walked out of, my hands clenched into fists so tight my nails dig into my palms. The room feels too small, too quiet, and my thoughts churn like a storm I can't calm. I know the truth now, know it with every fiber of my being. Chief Riley isn't just the man pretending to help. He's the man who pulled the trigger, the man who set the trap, the man who smiled as he destroyed my family. But what can I do with the truth? Who would believe me, a kid, saying the chief of police, a respected, trusted man in the community, is a murderer? The thought twists in my stomach. If I tell Mom, she'll think I've lost my mind. The town, they'd defend him, say it was just a traumatized kid making up stories to cope. They'd never believe me, not without proof, and right now, I don't have any. But that doesn't mean I'm letting it go.